like, you know what, let's just throw it down the funnel, because how I need to organize consultant and professional, it's just a lot of layers to it. So let's kind of comb through that, and I do have something already set up to kind of address that, so we gonna get into that too. Number one, if I were to consult a professional, I am aware that there is something called psychedelic assisted therapy, but there is a training for it. There is a program called MAPS. They conduct the training for it. So I want to know what even goes into that. Do you get to pick your psychedelic? Do you get to, like, if you trained in one, what's the difference between the training in all of them? More importantly, if I were to have a therapist and they were to be certified in this therapy, I would not personally want them as my therapist if they've never done it before. To some extent, there is a level of, like, you can be knowledgeable about something without having to do it. That goes into the field of medicine in general, because there are really good doulas out there and really good, like, OBGYNs and birthing experts that have never had kids before. And, you know, like labor and delivery professionals who've never had kids before. I don't know. It's just something about, like, I feel like if I was to go to therapy, I would want my therapist to have their own layer of personal experience. Now, there's another part of me that's like, well, all therapists also don't go through the same trauma that you go through, but that doesn't mean that they're not equipped with the knowledge, the resources, or the level of, like, professional processing techniques in order to be able to, I don't want to use the word rehab, but in order to help you sort through those feelings, in order to give you support with not only managing all the things that come afterward, but also to just help you deal with it in general, because they could specialize in something like trauma, sexual assault, sexual abuse, and so many other layers and reasons why people go to therapy in the first place. And so it's like, I don't want to discredit, but to some extent I would like that layer of relatability from the perspective of personal experience. And so it's not discriminatory whatsoever. It is just a preference. So let me just start there. But then when we're talking about mushrooms specifically, it would also make me wonder, like, okay, how knowledgeable are you about this in general? Number two, how many strains have you done? Have you ever hero dosed before? Have you ever done harsher substances before? A lot of times in professional spaces, that's really not the place to talk about all the things that you've done. Okay, you're there for your client, you're there for your patient, you're there to be of service. Somebody is paying for a service, you are there to provide said service. Okay, cool, I get that. But there's a level of, like, relatability that would just be desired. Like, you don't gotta tell me what you did, but to say that you have experience with other things and that there is a level of relatability, cool. But then the first time I threw this down the funnel, it was like, but would I really want a therapist that was like, yeah, girl, I done did everything. Are you sure you don't need a therapist? Like, there's a layer of me that just understands that people are people. We all have lived different lives. We've all lived certain lives. There are things that I'm comfortable talking about, and just because I'm comfortable talking about it doesn't mean that the next person is. I can talk about how I've done shrooms a million times, and that's just not a secret, right? It's not something that I'm hiding. It's a part of my story. It's a part of my journey. And that's me. I'm unashamed about it. But there are other people who, like, you know, may feel like they got an image to uphold, or they're just not okay with being that transparent. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Some stuff is not that people are being secretive or hiding anything. Some stuff is just genuinely not your business. And when it comes to therapy and being a therapist, some stuff is not your client's business, okay? And to be honest with you, therapists probably some of the best people to tell your tea to, because imagine how many clients and patients they got. Everybody telling this one person they tea, it's story time every time I turn on the appointment. You know what I'm saying? So I get that as well. But I think the biggest thing for me is that I would also want to know, like, how open is this therapist to the idea of psychedelic assisted therapy? And we're not even getting to the point of administration. We're not getting to the point of them figuring out how to dose people, but because some layers of therapy I am realizing are non-prescribing practitioners. So if we talking about a person who don't even administer psilocybin or administer any type of prescription, then that's not even something that they would even be considering, because it's like, that's not my ball game. I am in partnership with another professional who takes care of that, and those are things that we pass along. So my hands are off of that because that's just not a part of my field. Understandable. But I think for me, I would really want to be interested in how much knowledge my therapist has about it in general, because prime example, I had a primary care physician and we were having a conversation, and she was asking me basic questions like, do you smoke? That includes cigarettes, vapes, weed, crack, anything. And it was so funny because she was also a black doctor as well, so there was just a level of like lax conversation, and I was like, no, I don't smoke at all. She get to asking me, she's like, do you do any other substances that may not be smokable, and and I told her, I said, I do shrooms here and there, and she says, why you want to hallucinate? That was her first question, and it kind of threw me off because I was like, well, I don't hallucinate every time I do shrooms. And she was like, wait, you don't? And I was like, no. I mean, it's cool if I do. I mean, it's a great time still, but I don't hallucinate every time I do shrooms. So why do them? Because they have a great aspect of changing the chemistry of the things that go on in my brain, and I love that for me. So yeah, the benefits definitely outweigh the risk, and that's that. And she was like, I never knew that. Thanks for telling me. I guess I'm gonna go home and look it up. That kind of like got my wheels spinning some, because I was like, imagine how many other health professionals advise against things that they don't necessarily know the full scope of, that's rooted in not only a lack of information, but their personal bias. If I tell my doctor that like, hey, I want to incorporate mushrooms into my everyday regimen, I'm thinking about doing tinctures to accomplish that, I would hope that like, if my doctor was not knowledgeable about that, they'd be like, I don't know that much about tinctures, but what I can do is I can refer you to a nutritionist or to a dietitian, and they probably would be able to give you a little more insight on how to best do that, or if it would be better to just stick with regular functional mushrooms that you can find in the grocery store, as opposed to going the tincture route, which involves alcohol. So there's that as well. And then even just having that open conversation. Now look, y'all know I keep a handy dandy list. I wrote down a list of questions. I would be interested to know what kind of safety tips some of these professionals would stress, if they would stress any safety tips at all. And then another thing is like, even if you are at the administration part where you are suggesting amounts for consumption in order to have a therapy session that is inclusive and incorporating, where are you getting them from? I would also want to know how they feel about how safe it is for my mental and for my physical, and that goes for functional mushrooms as well. The risk versus the benefits and the specificities of the per person nature, right? So how would a therapist be able to properly calibrate or properly integrate mushroom consumption in relation to whatever health conditions that's pre-existing as it pertains to that person? What would they recommend as far as prescription medications and integrated psychedelic use? The rabbit hole is very deep if y'all have not realized that already. Furthermore, I'm like, how would a therapist encourage somebody to prepare mentally and physically for an experience? How would you explain to them like what they should expect beyond the hearsay of peers? How would they recommend the best practices for combing through the experience later? Is that where they want to come in? Is that where they come in? Is that like, would you be able to call your therapist if you are mid-experience and it's going left and you don't like it? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of layers that I'm trying to comb through, because I just genuinely want to understand. So what type of setting would a therapist recommend? Because what if your client comes to you and be like, look, I'm doing this, no matter how you feel, but I do want your input just because we got a really good rapport and we got a good background and I trust you. Like, I plan on doing this. What recommendations could you give? And then it's like, what would you say? It's just something that would require versatile knowledge, and I would love to explore that. I would love to unpack that. And then also too, how would a therapist tell a person if they ready or not? Like, hey, I think that it is very smart to have conversations with people about preparedness. Is that a layer of professionalism as it pertains to their specific practice that they're incorporating or at least cognizant of on the front end? I know you say you want to do this, but a part of being responsible is saying, do you genuinely think you're ready for this? Like, if I had a therapist and I was like, I really just want to have a kid, and my therapist like, and so Do we understand that having a kid is a very big responsibility? Your current situation, given A, B, and C, I just don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that you are as prepared and ready as you need to be in order to be responsible for another life. Are we at that level of therapy where the therapist keeping it a band because they actually are looking out for you as a person? You see what I'm saying? Like, I wonder about that a lot. I wonder about that a lot. There are many more questions on here, and then it's like, what support or aftercare do you offer? It's hard to prepare for things that have not happened or that may not ever be a part of your story. It is a great thing to be ready. And so when we talking about therapy and consulting a professional, all of these questions are things that I would actually love to run through with different kinds of therapists. I have put something together in order to be able to do that, and the hard part is finding therapists in general. So I did put something together. It is organized. It can be sent out as immediate as right now, even though y'all are seeing this video way later. So hopefully by the time it's published to YouTube, I'll have at least like a good 30 therapists that have filled out the survey that I put together, and I will be able to give y'all an insight video about that. And yeah, so consulting a professional, this is part 2 of consulting a professional. There will be a part 3. Like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, comment, like, and subscribe, and I will catch y'all on the flip side. Peace out, mushy buddies.